This is what the Super Bowl in the Bay Area looks like. Opening night at the Super Bowl, San Jose Convention Center. Now, there's a lot happening in San Francisco as well, but I just covered Commissioner Roger Goodell's press conference, which was down here in San Jose, and I've got intel from that. I have 49ers news for you today, and we're going to be broadcasting on location throughout this week ahead of the Super Bowl. San Francisco losing two assistant coaches. Daniel Bullocks, who we had talked about quite a bit here over the course of the past week because he was no longer on the 49ers website, and we knew that the 49ers had requested permission to interview Justin Hood, the Falcons defensive backs coach. So obviously there was something going on with Daniel Bullocks. He is leaving the 49ers to become the DB coach for the Green Bay Packers. So either Daniel Bullocks, after 9 seasons with the 49ers, did not see a path to advancement to a higher role with San Francisco and left on his own volition after his contract expired, or Raheem Morris, the 49ers' new defensive coordinator, wants his own DB coach as part of his staff. And remember that Justin Hood was Raheem Morris's DB coach in Atlanta. However, the Falcons denied permission for Hood to be interviewed by the 49ers, so San Francisco is still going to be looking for a new DB coach. I think that a possibility for the 49ers is Joe Woods, their former DB coach in 2019, who interviewed for the defensive coordinator position that Raheem Morris got. But that's what we know right now. Daniel Bullocks leaving to the Green Bay Packers. Bullocks, remember, tore his Achilles coaching for the 49ers in that 2023 season Super Bowl. He was celebrating the Jair Brown interception of Patrick Mahomes in the second half, and in the same game that Dre Greenlaw tore his Achilles, so did Daniel Bullocks. Other piece of news is that Gus Bradley, who also interviewed for the 49ers defensive coordinator position, but didn't get it because it went to Raheem Morris. Gus Bradley is going to be following Robert Saleh. Not a surprise. He and Robert Saleh go way back. Bradley is going to be Saleh's defensive coordinator in Tennessee. Now, a bit of a role reversal there, right? Because back in the day, Gus Bradley was a head coach in Jacksonville, and he was Robert Saleh's mentor even before that in Seattle. When he was the head coach in Jacksonville, Saleh was the linebackers coach under Gus Bradley. But now the situation is such that Saleh is the head coach and Gus Bradley is going to be his DC in Tennessee. Flipping this around, those of you just joining, the crowd is filing in here. Maybe we can even take a look around the block in downtown San Jose. That is Super Bowl opening night. So both of the teams, it's really the media night of the Super Bowl, but a lot of fans are now invited. As you can see, fans who have gotten tickets to this event are filing in at San Jose. I believe in front of me is the Seahawks team hotel. So this is one of those events, big events, where the entire Bay Area is going to be featured. San Francisco is going to feature a lot of events, and so will the San Jose area. I believe that Stanford is hosting one of the teams for practice. Andrew Luck spoke today at the Moscone Center. I was still on my flight in back from Europe, and I was just made it down here for the Roger Goodell press conference, where Roger did confirm that the 49ers would be very interested and happy to play an international game. He didn't confirm that the 49ers will play an international game, but he did say that Mexico City, Estadio Azteca, is going to be back on the hosting rotation for the 2026 season. They were remodeling the stadium here over the past couple of years. The 49ers played there against the Arizona Cardinals back in 2022, but there will again be an international game in 2026 back in Mexico, part of 9 international games, including this return to Mexico and a new one in Paris. Also, there's going to be one in Melbourne, Australia. We know that the Rams are going to be playing in Melbourne, Australia, and it is very likely that the 49ers are going to be losing a home game to play in one of the international games this year. That is according to Jed York, who spoke earlier this morning in San Francisco. Cam Inman, who writes at the Bay Area News Group, straight up asked Roger Goodell today if he can confirm that the 49ers are likely to play the Mexico game. Goodell did not go that far. He said the schedule hasn't yet come out, but he did say that ever since the NFL started doing some of this international stuff in the preseason back in the 80s, the 49ers have been very happy and willing to play in international games. That might be a little bit of a stretch. I don't know if the coaching staff would be all that happy to play overseas. I do know that Jed York today, in an interview, I believe it was with a Spanish TV station, like a Spanish-speaking TV station, but they conducted the interview in English. Jed York, though, did say that he would put Mexico City as number one on the 49ers list. And I would suspect that comes from competitive reasons. You would like to not travel as far if you're the 49ers headed to an international game. But hell, I would go to Paris if they played in Paris. I would go to London if they're one of the 3 London games. They're not going to be the Australia game because I don't think that the NFL would put a divisional game out in Australia. And also the word is that the 49ers are going to lose a home game. And supposedly that one out in Australia this year is going to be a Rams home game. So Jed York puts Mexico City as number one on his list. Roger Goodell doesn't comment much further than that. We will find out in a couple months around the time of the NFL draft if the 49ers are indeed going to be hosting an international game. The last time that they played one in Mexico, they beat the Cardinals bad. And the Cardinals were the home team in that game. Even though the 49ers had 90 to 95% of the crowd, it was a designated home game for Arizona. Another piece of news today, Al Guido, 49ers team president for 10 years, is now the 49ers CEO. He has been promoted to chief executive officer. Now, it is mainly just a move in title for Al Guido. I don't think that his responsibilities are going to change all that much, but he has done a good job for the 49ers over the course of his 12 years with the team, first as the chief operating officer and then as the team president, and now with Jed York having assumed principal ownership of the team over the course of the last couple of years. York's old position of CEO has been vacant, and Al Guido has naturally ascended into that CEO role. The 49ers organizational structure remains the same. And by that, I mean that Al Guido reports to Jed York, so does Kyle Shanahan, and so does John Lynch. There is no hierarchical difference between Jed York, or between Al Guido, Kyle Shanahan, and John Lynch. And that's really important, especially on the coach GM side. It's not that the GM is above the coach or the coach is above the GM. Both Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch report directly to Jed York, who is the principal owner of the 49ers. And Al Guido, the former team president, now the CEO, and York's former title of chief executive officer, still reports directly to Jed York. So it's an acknowledgement of the good work that Al Guido has done for the 49ers over the years. He's a big part of the hosting of this Super Bowl 60 here in the Bay Area. He was just at that Roger Goodell press conference, had a chance to visit with him a little bit after the game, or after the press conference. And he obviously has been instrumental in developing the 49er Stadium at Levi's. He was big for the Dallas Cowboys before that, and he's also been a consultant working with the Tennessee Titans on a beautiful new stadium that they are building in Nashville. So that is where the 49ers are now at as far as the structure of the organization at the very, very top. Next steps for the 49ers. We wondered what Raheem Morris is going to do as far as building a staff. DB coach, obviously a question with Daniel Bullock's heading to Green Bay after 9 seasons working his way up the ranks with the 49ers. He interviewed for the defensive coordinator spot last season. It went to Robert Saleh. Bullock's no longer interviewed for the DC spot this year. Now the DB coach role is vacant. I suspect that there will be a lot of changes for the 49ers in the defensive backfield, especially at the safety position. And remember that Daniel Bullock's initially started as the 49ers safeties coach before he moved up to the general DB coach. But with what we expect Raheem Morris to do, and I know that there's a broad definition of that because Morris is such an adaptable figure. He's run different coverages, he's run different fronts as a defensive coordinator and as a head coach. But I do think that if he takes a lot of what Atlanta ran last year to a good degree of success, if he takes some of those penny 5-1 fronts, that means up to 5 down defensive linemen, an emphasis on maybe only one linebacker. That would be a big departure from what the 49ers did in the past, even if that is only a partial sampling of what the 49ers bring. And I do think that they're going to be amorphous defensively. I do think they're going to try with Raheem Morris to bring a whole bunch of different looks so that they can evolve and not be stale. But if that's just one part of what they do, there's going to be more and more pressure on the nickelback position and on the safety position. And we know that the 49ers are set at nickel. Upton Stout is one of the better young players in football. He led the entire NFL, all defensive backs, not just rookies this past season, in pressures coming from nickelback. And I think that he's going to be asked to blitz even more with Raheem Morris, who had the second highest blitz rate in conjunction with his defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, as the coach of the Falcons last season. But even if nickelback is taken care of, what are the 49ers going to do at safety? And what Raheem Morris might run, some of the clues that we have based on what he's done in the past, especially the most recent past, what Raheem Morris might run, I think will certainly call for better safety play, especially in coverage, than the 49ers got this past year, which will, of course, then be reliant on good DB coaching. Raheem Morris, I don't think it's a surprise that the 49ers went out and tried to interview his DB coach before they even formally hired Raheem Morris, because it is going to be very important that the defensive coordinator is able to establish what he needs to establish as far as the defensive backfield goes. We have a question here from Mike. If Morris wants Hood, couldn't he give him an assistant head coach DB job title? Because Gus Bradley leaving opens that spot. Yes, that is true. Every team has one assistant head coach role that they can use. The 49ers had used that on Brandon Staley in 2024. They used it for Gus Bradley in 2025. With Bradley leaving to Tennessee, the assistant head coach post for the 49ers does, in fact, remain open now. And if they really, really want Justin Hood, I don't know if he'd be somebody that qualifies for that high of a title, but if they would really want him as a DB coach, they could potentially break through the filibuster, or break through the impasse, the denial of the interview from Atlanta, and interview Justin Hood. Although assistant head coaches are typically guys who have former head coaching experience, who have a little bit higher on the totem pole in the NFL world. I am looking right now through some other questions. Mike, I'm going to rely on you to copy and paste and bring stuff in. I, again, am at opening night at the Super Bowl. This is the look as fans are starting to filter in. Both the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks, every single player on the roster and every single coach on the roster is going to be available tonight inside the San Jose Convention Center. So when the 49ers went through this back in Miami in 2019 or the 2020 calendar year, and then again in the 2023 season or 2024 calendar year in Las Vegas, that this was always more of the circus event. You didn't really get as many serious interviews at this event. Again, this is the Super Bowl. It's one of the largest media conglomerations of the year in the entire world. This is a chance for everybody in the media to ask their questions, put on their theatrics in front of all the players. So we're going to get to see that tonight in San Jose. Then as the season as the week progresses, the Seahawks are going to do their media availability here near their team hotel in San Jose. And the Patriots are going to be at the Santa Clara Marriott, which is the hotel that the 49ers use for a lot of their guests. They use it on game days before they head to the stadium. The Patriots are going to be using that hotel, and I think they've set up some tents outside to run media availability. Christian McCaffrey today on the electrical substation theory said when it comes to EMFs and 5G and phones and blue light and Wi-Fi, it's not nothing. So I think that like I said, I mean, this is following exactly what we predicted would happen with the electrical substation talk. The fact that Levi Stadium is hosting the Super Bowl, which is this massive media event, only means that this is going to get more and more play, at least over the course of this week. Now, what's going to be really interesting is what happens after the Super Bowl ends. Does this conversation just die down, or is this something that persists into free agency, during which the 49ers would have to calm worries of prospective players? Because truth, scientifically, I think, is not even at the forefront of the discussion anymore here. I think this has become more of a viral thing that has taken on a life of its own, that the 49ers are having to answer to just because it has gone viral and because some players are talking about it. And if it hurts you just 1%, I don't know how you measure that, but if it hurts you 1%, just 2%, just 3%, just a minuscule amount when it comes to the contract leverage and free agent negotiation leverage, then it obviously is something that you have to address if you are the 49ers. Earlier today on Twitter, as I was flying from London to San Francisco, I was talking about some potential players that the 49ers might try to get, like ex-Falcons players who worked under Raheem Morris, because anytime that a defensive coordinator is added into the mix, the first thing you think is, okay, well, what guys might he bring with him? And I was talking about the 5-1 penny front that Raheem Morris implemented along with Jeff Ulbrich in Atlanta last year. And I thought about Caden Ellis, the linebacker, who seemed to really take well to that system. He would kind of be that sweeper pressure guy in that system. Because what happens when you got the 5 defensive linemen across? Opposing offenses can try to dictate that the edge rusher in that formation has to go out and cover somebody. And obviously the big concern for some fans is, well, if that happens with the 49ers, if Raheem Morris starts running 5 down linemen with Nick Bosa, won't opposing offensive coordinators force Nick Bosa out into coverage? The way that the 5-1 penny front is able to combat that is it sends a linebacker to back up the defensive end. That linebacker can either be a rusher, depending on what the offense does, or he can split off into coverage, and that allows somebody like your best edge rusher, like Nick Bosa, to stay in coverage. Somebody who played that role for the Falcons last year was Caden Ellis, and he's going to be a free agent this offseason. The 49ers will confer with Raheem Morris, and Raheem Morris, I'm sure, is going to be watching a ton of tape over the course of the next month or so before free agency starts. But he's going to have to determine if the 49ers have good enough linebacker play outside of Fred Warner to make him comfortable. And if he doesn't think that, if he thinks that the 49ers, especially when they're running something else than the 5-1, the penny front, but if he thinks that they're going to need better linebackers to execute his vision, if he thinks they're going to need linebackers that more closely resemble defensive backs as far as speed and coverage goes, well, then the 49ers might be on the market for that position over the course of free agency. I think that realities around the league are changing, and the safety and linebacker positions are becoming increasingly hybridized. The 49ers had a setup for a couple years there, the glory years for this linebacker unit. I mean, this even goes back to the Harbaugh era, but when they had Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman, 2 unicorns, right? 2 guys who could be physical in the run game at a Hall of Fame level, but also cover like safeties, like defensive backs. That blessing for the 49ers somehow carried over to the next generation, where there was a time where San Francisco had Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Azeez Al-Shire at linebacker. I mean, all these guys are top linebackers on different teams now, right? And that was heaven for what the 49ers attempted to run and have attempted to run over the course of the entire Shanahan era, whether it be Robert Saleh as defensive coordinator, DeMeco Ryans, and then moving forward, they've run a 4-3 defense that has been very, very reliant on speedy, excellent linebacker play. When they had all three of those guys, when they had Warner, when they had Greenlaw, when they had Azeez Al-Shaair, the 49ers basically had a cheat code punched in as a defense. They no longer have that luxury. Fred Warner is an all-world player. That's the luxury the 49ers have. I'm not sure if they have two more linebackers, and we'll see what Nick Martin can bring, but obviously he was dealing with those concussion issues at the end of the 2025 rookie season. But right now, the one sure plus commodity for the 49ers at linebacker is Fred Warner. D. Winters has flashed potential, but he hasn't been able to, I think, consistently stay on the field for the 49ers. Same thing with Tatum Bethune, who I think was a decent communicator for the 49ers last year, but then his season, as he got beaten up, was ultimately cut short by injuries. If Raheem Morris moves to a system or implements parts of a system that he used in Atlanta with Jeff Ulbrich last year, I think that some of the importance of linebackers will be de-emphasized. And I think that maybe he can bring in Caden Ellis, who was with Atlanta, and call it a day. And the 49ers could put more emphasis on the safety position, and everybody's going to start talking about trades for Jesse Bates. I don't think that that's particularly realistic unless the 49ers want to pay a lot for the Atlanta safety. But the focus will be on that nickel position and on that safety position, because I believe that is where the fulcrum of this defense will shift, because that is where the fulcrum of NFL defenses are shifting. If you are lucky enough to have linebackers who can cover like safeties like the 49ers did, and they were totally exceptional in that way when they had Warner, Greenlaw, and Azeez Al-Shaair, that's great. But I don't think that lightning's going to strike a third time. It's already struck twice for San Francisco. They've already benefited from Willis and Bowman, and then Warner, Greenlaw, and Azeez Al-Shaair. I think that now is a really good inflection point for this team to move into this new era of NFL football, where safety's got to be fast, safety's got to be your new linebacker. That body type, that skill set has to deliver. And I think that Raheem Morris is the defensive coordinator that's going to help usher the 49ers into that era. Now, another player is going to be a free agent, and this is another position where I think that the 49ers are going to need to add a little bit of muscle is defensive tackle, David Onyemata. He's 33 years old. He's going to be 34 next year. It's a big DT who has had a very, very productive career with the Saints and now with the Falcons. So he's stayed in the NFC South over the course of his whole career. David Onyemata might still command about $10 million a year, but I think it might be money well spent, especially if the 49ers can just get him in for, a Calais Campbell type of contract, just a year here, probably toward the tail end of his career. But the way that Onyemata played under Raheem Morris and Jeff Ulbrich in Atlanta last year, I almost thought it was a little bit of a resurgence for him. I mean, he was putting up good pressure numbers. He was solid against the run. He fit the system that Raheem Morris liked. He fit the penny fronts that he was bringing to the table. Listen, the 49ers need more juice pass rushing wise from the interior. If they do move to the five-man fronts that we think are going to be employed by Raheem Morris, at least to some degree, it's going to move Mykel Williams inside. There will be edges on the outside of Mykel Williams on essentially every single down that he plays. That's going to be great for Mykel Williams. I think it's going to be great for the 49ers. It's going to allow him to play an Eric Armstead defensive tackle type of role. I think that he's going to win against guards. I think he's going to command double teams. I think he's going to free up edge rushers for the 49ers. But even in that scenario, I think that the 49ers, who generated only 2.5 sacks from their defensive tackles last year, would benefit greatly from more pass rushing juice on the inside. I think that's the one thing that this defensive line was truly missing last year, even when it was fully healthy. I mean, when everybody was available, you could say, okay, Yetur Gross-Matos, good inside-out, outside-in type of player, and he generated a pretty high pressure rate. But I still think the 49ers could have used one more guy on the inside to spruce up that interior pass rush. That's why they went out and they signed Javon Hargrave ahead of 2023, because they were missing that interior pass rushing juice. And it wasn't a lack of production for Javon Hargrave, it was a lack of health. When that guy was healthy, the the 49ers were getting that interior disruption that they needed and that they miss right now. So I think that David Onyemata is someone who's going to be a free agent, who might be able to be kind of a guiding shepherd for the 49ers interior defensive line, somebody that you can pair with a Michael Williams, who's, I think, going to be playing more on the inside now than ever before, pair with a CJ West, pair with a Alfred Collins. West, Collins, and Michael Williams, I mean, the glory of what the 49ers did last year, and Robert Saleh was such a huge get for the 49ers in 2025, because what he did was he restabilized the defense for the 49ers. When they were decently healthy, they were a good run defense again. They drafted to fix the run defense first and then add the bells and the whistles later. So Michael, when he was in there, the 49ers were the number 6 run defense in football before he tore his ACL. By the end of the season, CJ West and Alfred Collins were blossoming into plus players on run defense. If the 49ers believe that what they have drafted and cultivated here ever since the start of 2025 has allowed them to turn the corner and stand on solid bedrock again as far as run defense goes, if Raheem Morris and the 49ers both believe that, then they can really start pushing the envelope again, looking for pass rushing guys to supplement that, the bells and whistles on top of what's most important, and that is that run defense. Because if you don't stop the run, you're not going to have any fun. And I think in that case, they could be looking at guys like Onyemata, who I think is good against the run and the pass, but he's a pressure guy from the defensive tackle position. I even think they might look at Leonard Floyd again, because the reason they let Leonard Floyd go, and he went to Atlanta to work under Raheem Morris in 2025, the reason they let him go was primarily because of the lack of run defense. But as they jettisoned these pass rush specialist types after 2024, and Floyd would cost $10 million, and that's what the Falcons signed him for after the 49ers cut him, as they jettisoned those guys, the 49ers replaced them with run stoppers. I think that the proof is in the pudding. When they were healthy, the run defense was looking a whole heck of a lot better. Now they can circle back around and add the finishing touches to the pass rush. And, you know, maybe they can find a way to do that through the NFL draft. Maybe they can find a way to do that with a free agent we're not discussing right now. But it is possible that they try to do that with players that Raheem Morris is familiar with, because that is simply how the NFL works. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Leonard Floyd in a second, flipping the camera around. Those of you just joining, this is opening night at the Super Bowl. It has begun inside. I think I'm going to swing by into the San Jose Convention Center in just a few minutes to see what's going on in there. Maybe we could even live stream as we walk through. Probably not. I'm not going to do that because it is just an absolute zoo if you walk inside. I want to talk in peace about the 49ers today, but the media room is right here. Fans behind me are going crazy. I heard a few Seahawks chants. I'm sure you guys won't be too interested to hear that, though. Hopefully the mic is operating very well so you can only hear me and not all the light rail traffic and all the Seahawks chants here in the Bay Area that is happening in the background. Anyway, Leonard Floyd, I would keep his name on the radar. I would keep Onyemata's name on the radar. I would keep Caden Ellis's name on the radar. These are all players who have worked under Raheem Morris before. Remember that Leonard Floyd actually intersected with Raheem Morris at 2 spots. The Falcons last year, and then the Rams before that. Leonard Floyd was part of the Rams Super Bowl championship team in 2021. We have a super chat. David, what role do you think changes defensive coordinator every year played in young? Guys, you have to type in questions that are actual sentences. I can't. I'm sorry, I just can't read that, Mike. That needs to be typed out for me in a way that is cohesive. I think you're trying to ask, is this on the defensive coordinator or on the position coaches for developing? But that, I mean, I'm sorry, I can't answer a question that is written in a way that is basically illegible to me. So I appreciate the super chat. I'm not gonna call out whoever wrote that question, but I really, I'm live right now and I really need questions that are a little bit better worded so that I could actually answer them in an honest way. Mike asks, who's the top free agent I think the 49ers will pursue? Well, I just mentioned free agents that the 49ers might pursue who were involved with the Falcons last year, which means that Raheem Morris is familiar with them. But, I did a big show yesterday when I was back in Scotland. We were on St. Andrews, right? We're a long way from St. Andrews now. We are at opening night of the Super Bowl. By the way, back in St. Andrews, it's a college town. They're advertising the Super Bowl. They're saying that they're going to have a big watch party for the Super Bowl there at the Student Union. I thought that was super cool. I thought it was super cool that I now have flown all the way across the world to be at the Super Bowl. But anyway, I talked about potential free agents. I said Romeo Doubs. Now we're talking about the offensive side of the ball, the receiver for the Green Bay Packers, formerly of the Green Bay Packers, I guess, if he doesn't re-sign with them. I talked about John Franklin Myers, defensive tackle. That might even be a more appealing thing for the 49ers now. He's been with the Denver Broncos. I think John Franklin Myers has played in a number of different systems. He's a disruptive guy. He's a good run stopper on the inside. I think he's a really underrated player. That you just look at positions where the 49ers definitely need to fortify. Defensive tackle, obviously, they only had 2.5 sacks last year from their interior pass rushers. Wide receiver, obviously, they've been near the bottom of the league or at the very bottom of the league in terms of separation over the course of the past 2 seasons. So I look at somebody like Dobbs. I look at somebody like John Franklin Myers to take care of both of those issues. Does it necessarily have to be one of those 2 players? No. Like the 49ers can go higher price point at wide receiver if they want to make a big splash. If they want to make almost an A-list splash at receiver. Maybe you could talk about Alec Pierce, the receiver who scored against them from the Colts. I mean, it's a big body, a fast body, a 4.3, 4.4 type of guy who can also block. That is if you believe that you have to go to the A-list market to make up for the loss of Brandon Ayuk and maybe even to make up for the loss of Jawan Jennings. I think there's a chance that the 49ers, and it might be a high chance, they think that a second-tier wide receiver like a Romeo Doubs will be enough since Brock Purdy is so damn good. And the NFL draft will be the 49ers supplementation to whomever they add in free agency. There are multiple different ways to attack this issue. One of the ways is to make the massive A-list receiver splash, and somebody like Alec Pierce would be closer to qualifying to that. Another way would be to trade the farm for a receiver like Justin Jefferson, although Minnesota would actually have to be willing to trade him for that to be possible. But probably the most attainable way of improving the wide receiver room is to constantly hammer at it through the draft and then to find an affordable option that fits your system well. And I can tell you that Romeo Doubs can run. His contested catch abilities and contested catch metrics are amongst the best in the league, and he can also block. And that's obviously going to be really, really important for Kyle Shanahan and company. All right, we got another super chat here. Do you foresee the need for the 49ers to hire a consultant to really strategize the roster going forward? I believe Kyle has bottom line on the roster. Guys, the 49ers already have consultants to help them with the roster. This is not just Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch making single-handed decisions on the roster. The entire staff has input. They've got advanced pro scouts that have input. Mike Shanahan is a consultant, basically working for free for the 49ers. He has input. I mean, there are a lot of meetings of minds behind the scenes for the 49ers helping build this roster. And we cannot pretend that this is a bad 49ers roster. It hadn't been bad for several years. The fact they were able to still win 13 games despite that mass amount of injuries should tell you a whole heck of a lot about the 49ers and how deep this roster is. So do they have to address certain specific issues just like every other NFL team? Of course. Do they have to answer to fans and these myopic ideas about needing to bring in a consultant or something to turn around their fortunes? No. I mean, it's complete nonsense. The team is much more plugged into this than the public, and the team has definitely left no stone unturned in its quest to build as strong of a roster as possible. And the proof has been in the pudding. The 49ers have been in the playoffs multiple times. They've taken the distance to the Super Bowl twice over the course of the past half decade. They fielded, I think, the best roster in the NFL multiple times, and they've also done something that I think no team with their level of injuries had ever done before this past season, and that's win 13 games, including a win over the defending world champs on the road in the playoffs. So they're doing a fine job building this roster. Now is the time to take it the next level. Remember that this was a reset year for San Francisco in 2025 as far as the financial salary cap situation went. I think they handled it just fine. And I think that they're in very, very good position now to spend money in 2025 and take things to another level. And the areas of improvement that I point to are wide receiver, because that's where they got screwed by Brandon Ayuk. I point to defensive tackle because that's where they need more pass rushing juice. The edge opposite Bosa can obviously use more pass rushing juice. That's why I mentioned Leonard Floyd again. I think the time might be right for a reunion or at least a signing of a player of that type. I don't think that Leonard Floyd's going to be a $10 million price tag anymore. I think he's probably going to be somewhere between $5 and $7 million now. He wasn't great for Atlanta last year, but you could always use more juice. And I think that you can improve the safety position if you're the 49ers. Of course, you're always looking to fortify the offensive line. And I've mentioned many times that center right guard combination last year did not yield the type of rushing production that the 49ers have wanted it to yield. We'll see if that can turn around. We'll see if the 49ers try to make a splash on the center market, because the third player that I mentioned in my video from Scotland yesterday was Tyler Linderbaum, the center for the Baltimore Ravens. As Mike says right now in our little WhatsApp chat, R&D, research and development, has a massive, massive role in who the 49ers sign. Those are the consultants. You don't have to bring in an outside consultant. You already have those guys in your building. And they have done objectively a good job. Anybody who's saying that the 49ers have not had a strong roster and do not have a strong roster just honestly is trolling or doesn't know what they're talking about in this salary cap era of the NFL. Question, should the 49ers move assets like Guerendo and Cowing? They're desperate for speed, but they didn't give these guys any snaps. Well, are those guys movable? Because you have to be more than fast to be worth something at the NFL level. If there are questions about Isaac Guerendo's ball security and his vision as a running back, I don't know, what you would get in return for him. Maybe a 7th round pick somewhere. Is that really worth it? And that's assuming that you do get a 7th round pick. I think Isaac Guerendo, if they don't believe in his ability to truly develop as a running back, I think he might get some looks at receiver this offseason. I think that would be a prudent thing for the 49ers to do. As far as Jacob Cowing goes, you got to give this guy a healthy chance. Apparently he had a really good offseason last year, but then he hurt his hamstring. So he hasn't really had much of a healthy chance beyond that rookie year for the 49ers. So let's just see how that develops, because he could, along with Jordan Watkins, be a really important part in the 49ers' needs this year. More questions. I'm looking at the screen. We are here at the Super Bowl. I have flown from Europe today. So I woke up very early Pacific time in the morning at London Heathrow Airport, where we did the live on Raheem Morris yesterday. I boarded the plane, United Airlines, shout out to them. I think they're the official airline of the 49ers. Made it all the way here to the West Coast, rushed down to Roger Goodell's press conference, and now we are live from San Jose, where Super Bowl opening night is happening. Look, there's the San Jose Civic Center, some buses across the street. The sun is setting here in the Bay Area. I'll tell you what, the weather could not be better for this Super Bowl week. It might rain during the game a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be raining on any of the festivities here in the Bay Area over the course of the week. A great chance to showcase this area, and I've got a very exciting video that's been in the works for a long time, helping showcase San Francisco and some local businesses that's going to be coming out here over the course of the next couple days. Another question, given Nick Bosa's injury history, would the 49ers be better off trading Bosa and his huge salary and trying to draft a quality edge rusher and maybe sign a veteran edge rusher? No, I don't think so. Because I think that when Nick Bosa is healthy, And he's gone long stretches healthy for the 49ers. He is a force multiplier. And who's to say that a player that you get instead of Nick Bosa wouldn't also get hurt? Like, football's a sport where there's violence involved and guys get hurt. It is football. So don't just think that this is a video game where you could ship away your best players for assets and then get 4 excellent players in return. Guys with a proven track record of being force multipliers, of getting stuff done, like a Nick Bosa, who's obviously going to be wanting to play for yet another contract. He has plenty of reason to dig in here and keep himself as healthy as possible. Those are guys that you want on your football team. That being said, you know, somebody like Bosa too, if you really believe that he's not going to be that effective for the 49ers this year, what have you figured out that other teams haven't figured out? Because I'm sure that he would command a massive, massive return in that case, right? And at that level, every player does have his price. I just don't think that I just don't think that there is a price at which the 49ers could possibly be incentivized to move off of a guy who, when he is available, is a force multiplying pass rusher who completely changes the fortunes of a defense. All right, more questions. I'm taking a look at the screen right now. Show you guys opening night at the Super Bowl here. We don't have much more light in San Jose. I do have the ring light, but I don't think that we're going to be on that long. We have passed 100,000 subscribers. That is super exciting. Look, we could even go to, they're doing the Seahawks chant again, so I got to talk really loud so we can't hear it. Look, yeah, it is 100,000 subscribers on the actual YouTube page. This is super, super exciting. We got evidence of it right here. Oh, it's going to be backwards. It's not good. It's going to be back. Actually, I could do it on this side. Here. I want to see the 100,000 subscribers. If you guys want to see firm evidence of it, the camera will not be flipped now. We can go to the page. We can zoom in. Look at that. Look at that. There's visual proof. I know it's a little shaky right now, but we got the tripod in position. There's visual proof. 100,000 real subscribers. They're not bought and paid for. And those of you watching who haven't subscribed yet, well, hit that subscribe button. This is the only channel where you're going to be getting 49ers content from the golf course, the oldest golf course in the world in Scotland at St. Andrews one day, and then back at the Super Bowl the very next day. We've got some dedication on this channel. Again, the news today, Al Guido is now the 49ers CEO. It is a change in title, essentially, for Al Guido. He's done a good job, and he deserves that promotion. The 49ers will not be retaining Daniel Bullocks, their DB coach. Daniel Bullocks is headed to the Green Bay Packers. Raheem Morris wants a new DB coach, it seems, based on the fact that they've already requested an interview with Justin Hood, but the Falcons aren't letting that happen, so we'll see if it's Joe Woods or somebody else. And Gus Bradley is leaving with Robert Saleh, his former mentee, to be Robert Saleh's defensive coordinator in Tennessee. I think it's time for me to head into opening night at the Super Bowl. It's been a lot of fun, guys. This is the San Jose Convention Center. There's that Seahawks team hotel. I want to go ahead in, get some food, talk to some players, and then head back to San Francisco because it is a beautiful, beautiful week here in the Bay Area. There's the 49ers news. Hit that subscribe button. Everybody, thanks for watching. We will talk to you very, very soon. This has been Lombardi Live from Super Bowl opening night.